The community of Trenton sits on a hillside overlooking Pictou County's East River. At the top of that hill is Trenton Park, and that's where I am now. And it's where I'm starting my walkabout today as I head towards the Smelt Brook Trail and on a journey through Trenton's history. There are 6 kilometers of hiking trails in Trenton Park, winding through 565 acres of hemlock and other coniferous trees. There is also a 6.5 kilometer mountain bike trail here. I've started my journey on a portion of the Veterans Way Trail, which is a 1.4 kilometer loop around a large pond in the park. I'm going to continue on to the Founders Trail and the Druin Trail before leaving the park on the Trio Trail. All of these form parts of the 5.3 kilometers of Trans-Canada Trail, which is located in the town of Trenton. A gun like this at first may seem out of place in a park so focused on nature and recreation. But it's a reminder of Trenton's industrial past, and Trenton is an industrial town. 201 guns like this were constructed in plants near the bottom of the hill where I will end my hike later today. They were constructed for the Royal Navy, the Royal Canadian Navy, and the Indian Navy. This particular gun is an MK-19 4-inch twin naval gun. Trenton's gun shop had 600 workers, almost half of them women. It was said that this was one of the finest pieces of equipment built in Canada for the war effort, a testament to the industrial manufacturing quality in Trenton. This part of the Trans-Canada Trail starts here in this park, and from here it goes on to Stellarton and Guysborough before looping around to the Canso Causeway and on to Cape Breton. Now, on official trail maps, at the bottom of this hike, you can also take a water route as part of the trail into the town of Pictou and continue on to Halifax or across the country. This park is the largest public green space in Pictou County. Recently, the park has been undergoing significant upgrades. The federal, provincial, and municipal governments have put $3.8 million into revitalization here, including shelters, benches, signage, and improved trails. Trenton got its name in 1882. It was the suggestion of a citizen by the name of Harvey Graham, who had visited the U.S. city of Trenton, New Jersey. The town itself was incorporated in 1911. Trenton itself is small, only 6 square kilometers. The population here has dropped over the years as manufacturing has declined. The first European settlers were Scottish in 1773. I'm just about to leave Trenton Park on the Trio Trail and join up with the airport route and the Smelt Brook Ravine Trail. Now they'll take me down to Main Street, going downhill along the side of the airport for a distance of just under 4 kilometers. I've joined this section of trail by crossing Logan Road at the northeast end of the Trenton Airport runway. Now this runway runs from northeast to southwest. There's also a cross runway that's rarely used now. This trail is fairly new, having only officially opened in 2017 after $180,000 worth of upgrades. This is not a busy airport by any means, but you can still see aircraft land here as you walk the trail. Most common are corporate jets and life flight helicopters. It's a short flight to Halifax from here, only about 12 minutes. The runways can handle larger jets and occasionally handle charters for university sports teams and visiting dignitaries. The airport itself is run from a small building on the west side of the airport, opposite to the trail. It's open to public transportation, but while once owned and operated by the town, it's now owned by Sobeys, which is a major employer in this part of the province. That airport, while small, has welcomed some pretty important dignitaries. People ranging from Queen Elizabeth to Prince Philip, Charles and Camilla, even Babe Ruth, as well as numerous prime ministers and politicians. The airport began as a dream of local private pilots in 1929. In 1930, land was cleared and the Pictou County Aero Club was formed. By June 1932, a 320-foot grass landing strip opened, welcoming a de Havilland Gypsy Moth flown by Canadian aviation legend Jimmy Wade. Later, Jim Mollison landed there after an east to west crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. The airport was subsequently named after him. In the lead up to World War II, the airport was listed in official documents as the Royal Canadian Air Force Aerodrome, New Glasgow and Trenton. It listed a turf field with 2 runways. In 1950, the airport here left private hands and the ownership was taken by the town of Trenton. They operated it for roughly 60 years before selling it to Sobeys. That was in 2006. By that time, the population of Trenton was around 2,500, and it just wasn't economically feasible for the town to continue operating and maintaining this facility. The airport sits on the top of a hill, and the southwest end of the runway takes aircraft out over the border of Trenton and New Glasgow on the hillside below, as well as the rest of the Smelt Brook Ravine trail where I'm hiking today. As I make my way down the hill and past Trenton's airport, I'm heading towards Main Street and Trenton's industrial heart. That's after the break.
Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine.
I'm heading down the Trans-Canada Trail through Trenton. I started up in Trenton Park, have gone past the Trenton Airport, and am now on the Smelt Brook Ravine Trail, headed towards the industrial heartland of Trenton itself. And manufacturing is what Trenton was known for. They had a glassworks here, a rail car works, and they also built towers for wind turbines. Trenton's history of manufacturing goes back to 1789, when Captain George Loudon started a shipbuilding business in the Narrows, close to where Nova Scotia Power's Trenton generating station now exists. The Trenton Works facility dominates the town's waterfront. It was the site of Canada's first steel mill when it opened in 1870. In 1877, Hope Iron Works moved to Trenton, and it was situated on land where the Trenton plant now exists. Over more than a century, many businesses would occupy that site. The history of steel is a big part of Trenton's identity. In fact, the first pouring of steel in British North America happened here in 1883. At this point, the trail passes Trenton's Christ the King Cemetery. Between 1916 and 1922, 6 cargo vessels and a sailing vessel were built in Trenton to replace ships that were sunk during World War I. And it wasn't the last time Trenton would be involved in the war effort. In 1941, the federal government took over part of the Trenton Works plant to build guns and shells, guns just like the one I saw in Trenton Park near the beginning of this hike. The first ship built in Trenton was the War Wasp, which was launched in July of 1917. It was a big ship for the river at 228 feet long and 35 feet wide. In keeping with the naming trend, the Warby was also launched in Trenton, and it saw service until it sank off Halifax during the Second World War in 1944. Had it not been for a desperate need of ships, the Trenton yards would likely not have been building them at all. But the Nova Scotia Steel and Coal Company, which was building the ammunition already, argued they could build ships as well. One challenge, however, was the shallowness of the East River. The river you see today is a straightened, widened, and deepened river from what it would have been prior to the wartime shipbuilding effort, as work was done to make it easier to get the ships out once they were built. By the time of the Second World War, the Trenton plants were already busy with a new industry, building rail cars. In 1912, the Nova Scotia Steel and Coal Company formed the Eastern Car Company to make rail cars. September 1913 saw the first boxcar roll off the line. For almost a century, Trenton was known for quality rail cars, with the product being shipped all over the world. The factory also produced shafts for ships, parts for offshore rigs, and did other steelwork, but they were best known for rail cars. In its heyday, people came from across Canada and the United States to work at the plant. But the end was coming near. In the early 1990s, the provincial government took over ownership of the plant to keep it alive. They ultimately found a private buyer, but the industry was in decline. The production of rail cars ended in Trenton in 2007, striking a major blow to the town. After all, this is a place that is punched above its weight when it comes to industrial development. In a town where the population, even at its peak, was less than 3,000 people, 1,200 direct jobs were lost and many other indirect ones. Trenton tried one more time at a steel industry in the province when Korean company Daewoo took over the Trenton Works plant to build towers for wind turbines. The manufacturing line opened in 2011 with significant government support, but it never proved successful and was shuttered 5 years later in 2016. There's no doubt that steel is important in Trenton. The town's motto is "Strike while the iron is hot," and the town gives an approving nod to its history with steel and rail cars by promoting an area for business called Steeltown Park. Steeltown Park is 565 acres of land, and while mostly idle now, the dream of a new industrial tenant remains. But it hasn't always been steel here. Glass was an important industry in Trenton in the early years. There were 3 glass houses here between 1881 and 1915. In fact, Trenton was the only place in Nova Scotia at the time where glass was manufactured. This is Smelt Brook. Now, Smelt Brook not only offers this trail and the park its name, but the original name of the community of Trenton was also Smelt Brook. As I've walked down the hill the town sits on, I've walked through a mix of forest, of old-growth hemlock, oak, and maples. For the most part, this trail was prepared by volunteers with funds going to materials. Volunteers from the Cape to Cape Trail, the Friends of Trenton Park Society, and many others lent a hand to build this section and get it open to the public. The section along the airport earlier on my hike relied heavily on the support of airport staff who helped to clear the trail corridor. By now I'm in Smelt Brook Park, which is down very close to Main Street. Now, where Smelt Brook Park begins and the runway area ends, that's a bit indistinct. But if you look from the air, you can actually see a green corridor running all the way from the waterfront to Trenton Park. These days, the biggest industry dominating the skyline here is the Trenton Generating Station, with stacks of 500 and 300 feet in height. It's a large station using coal to generate 310 megawatts, or about 12% of Nova Scotia's electricity. Since it opened in 1969, and until 2001, it relied mostly on coal from Cape Breton. These days, most of the coal comes from the United States and South America. While a drawbridge and pier would allow coal ships to dock at the plant, it's rarely used. Most coal is brought by train from the Strait of Canso. Well, I've crossed through Smelt Brook Park, and I'm approaching Trenton's Main Street and the end of this hike. Just over that way is the Trenton work site, and in the distance, the Trenton generating station, and they both sit along Pictou's East River. There's a lot to explore in Trenton, and you wouldn't expect that for somewhere that is geographically so small. Well, after the break, I'm headed towards Melmerby Beach, which is also in Pictou County, about 12 kilometers to the northeast, to explore the coastline of Roy Island.
Won't you be mine? Feel the sunshine.
Not far from Trenton, you'll find one of Nova Scotia's most spectacular beaches, Melmerby Beach. It's popular for its white sand and warm waters along the Northumberland Strait. And at the end of the beach, you'll find Roy Island and a short looped hiking trail. It's about a 300-meter walk from the last parking lot at Melmerby Beach to the start of the trail itself. To the right of the trailhead, a private drive takes you to a small collection of residences here. The rest of the land on the island, and all of that which the trail crosses, is Crown land. The trail officially starts here at this gate, although most people will measure it as a 4-kilometer loop from the parking lot. Now, this used to be a road, and if you look at online maps, it will actually suggest that you can drive here, called Highway 289 or the Roy Island Road. But it's been closed for a long time and it's grassed over. This used to be a road to a farmhouse. That house is long gone, though some bushwhacking will take you to the remains of the foundation. The Little Harbour Walking and Biking Trail Society started work here with the support of the province in 2012 to create the walking trail. This grassed over road will take you directly to the look-off, and it's mostly like this until a short 350-meter woodland path at the end. Most commonly, people will take this route all the way out to the look-off. This pathway is easily accessible for walkers and hikers of just about any ability. You can even have strollers go along here. However, there is a looped route which will take you along the shore of Roy Island, right along the Northumberland Strait. And it's the loop that I'm taking today. And the turnoff for that is usually marked by flagging tape. Melmerby Beach Park, which includes Roy Island, was established in 1977 and was one of the first 15 beaches in Nova Scotia supervised by the Nova Scotia Lifeguard Service. It's named for the wreck of the Melmerby, which sank on October 12, 1890, not far off the beach. Prior to the wreck, the beach was called King's Head Beach. The ship Melmerby ran into trouble in a storm 5 days after leaving Quebec with a load of timber. The wreck was visible from the beach for a long time, resulting in the renaming of the beach. Well, that's Pictou Island, about 15 kilometers or so in the distance. And beyond that, you can just make out the white specks of buildings on Prince Edward Island, a further 20 kilometers. Between here and there, there's a story of another ship that sails the Northumberland Strait, this time a ghost ship. PEI singer-songwriter Lenny Glant has a song called Tales of the Phantom Ship, which tells the story of the mysterious burning ship of the Northumberland Strait. It's possibly the most famous story of a ghost ship in Canada. The ghost ship is usually described as a 3 or 4 masted ship, sometimes a square rigger, sometimes a schooner. People who have seen it say the ship is on fire. There have been stories of seeing people on the ship, sometimes people and dogs. Stories of the phantom ship go back at least to 1905, perhaps even earlier than that. 2 books, one in 1939 and one in 1948, made the ghost ship even more popular in culture. Now, of course, there are lots of explanations for why a ghost ship would be on fire in these waters, and they range from the supernatural to the environmental. Those explanations include the ship being the ghost ship of wrecks like the John Craig Light, Isabella, or Colbum. It might even be a pirate ship. It's even said it could be Captain Kidd's, a captain who some say was wrongly convicted of piracy in 1701. Often the story involves ships which mysteriously disappeared, like one which left for Scotland from Pictou to never be seen again. Of course, there are some potentially natural explanations for the ghost ship. One of them is St. Elmo's fire, which is a phenomenon when electricity in the air bounces off high points like ship masts. Now that's pretty rare and is usually seen from the air, so that's probably not what's going on. More likely it's a mirage. Well, that is if it isn't supernatural. This look-off is the midway point of the loop, more or less, and is the destination for hikers and walkers, regardless of which direction they take to get here. From here, you can head down and go to the shoreline and explore, or you can sit here and watch eagles soar or seals playing in the water. Recently, the Trail Society had an interpretive sign put in here, and binoculars, which give you an idea of what it is that you're looking at offshore. Taking the loop, the trail winds back to the old road. As I mentioned early on, many people take the walk out on this road and straight in and out rather than that loop. You know, sheep grazed here at one time. Well, you might not know it from all the trees that are here now. And the farmhouse was here, of course, and this was the loop road. This is a lovely place for a hike or a walk in any season, and if you're here in summer, a great way to break up a day at the beach. If you're staying in the Pictou County area, it's a great companion to Trenton Park and Smelt Brook. All of these are trails which are often overlooked and best known to locals. Wherever your next walkabout finds you, I hope you find places that are overlooked.
Hey, come on, feel the sunshine. Oh, come on, won't you be mine? Hey, come on, feel the sunshine. Oh, come on, won't you be mine? Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, feel the sunshine. Oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, feel the sunshine.